right now we are looking at the incoming Christmas season. Well, we're in the midst of Christmas season, I suppose is the best way to put it. In the U.S., everything has a season, and Christmas is like the biggest season because Christmas is when people are spending money and all that sort of thing. And being in a society where money spending is a big part of society, the the fervor with which it is all done is remarkable. And the thing is, it's not something that I'm knocking at all because I love it. I love Christmas. I love giving gifts. I love receiving gifts. I love the entire thing. I love Santa. I love the wrapped presents under the tree, the lights on the tree. I love the festive music. I love the feeling of camaraderie, brotherhood, whatever you want to call it, that comes along with the season. The concept that we can go through this Ebenezer Scrooge transformation and eventually love one another instead of living in this bubble of me, make money, me, do this, me, do that, me, do the other. No, like, because life is about other people. So, that said, I had something specific that I thought that I wanted to talk about. But every time I see the like overwhelming festivities, so you walk into a store and it's crammed full of product and bustling shoppers, and there's Christmas music playing, and everything's very sensory overload. It reminds me of, it was about 12 years ago ish. Sarah and I were living in a different place, and there was a fire in the apartment below us. There was a person that was squatting in the apartment. The From what we were told afterwards, the landlord had given them a key so that they could get in, and they were basically lighting fires to keep warm. And apparently they were like living by candlelight and this, that, the other, and they left something on. There were all sorts of wild accusations and things that flew around of the one of them was an arsonist and this one was that, and this, no idea. No idea, because we were never told any follow up aside from there was a person living beneath us that on the second floor that was heating the place with fire, heating or lighting, anyways. And the whole building went up. It didn't burn to the ground, but I'll explain that in a minute. So the whole thing, I remember it very clearly, and I won't forget it. I don't think ever. Is we started hearing the fire alarms go off, which was not abnormal for the building, because that happens sometimes in the old buildings. Like someone's cooking, they installed an alarm too close to the stove, it goes off. It happens. The So I went downstairs. No, sorry. First, I went next door and I asked them, was it you? Is it your alarm? They said no. So then I go downstairs. Now I know that there's no one living on the second floor. At least I assumed there was no one living on the second floor because there wasn't supposed to be. So I went down to first floor and I was like, hey, the smoke alarm's going off upstairs. Do you know what's going on? Because it's second floor. Well, we touched the doorknob, and the doorknob was hot. And eventually came to the realization that it was actually a fire. So I went back upstairs. I knocked on the apartment next to ours door, and I told them that it was a fire. And they said, "Oh, there's smoke coming up through the cabinets." It's been coming up through the cabinets for a while. We didn't think anything of it, because apparently there was smoke coming through the cabinets before the alarms were even going off. And they didn't think of anything about it. So I go into our apartment and I tell Sarah that it's a fire and it's for real. We had a plan, and we still have a plan for whenever this sort of thing happens. My part of the plan is to grab the computer, because the computer has all my writing, it has all our photography, it has all of our essential information. So my number one is to grab the computer. Her number one is to find the cats. We had 2 at the time. And she could not find the cats. She tried. And it did not work. I was telling her to leave. She had her coat on. She had the car keys. And she did not want to go. And I told her, I remember looking at her and then saying, we can go back into the bedroom and look for one of our cats, which was Isabella. She's probably hiding underneath the bed, I say. So go into the bedroom, try to look under the bed. I don't see her. And I look to the bedroom window and I see flames coming up. And I tell Sarah to go, because I tell her it's us or them, and it has to be us. We need to be the ones that get out. So she left, and I went back to try to see if I could find her, Isabella, and I tried to find Dante, and that was our other cat, and I couldn't. And I remember we had this record, this Don Ho record, on the wall in a frame, because our kitchen was decorated kind of tiki-ish. So I was big into tiki mugs and stuff like that, despite not drinking. But yeah, so we had Don Ho framed record album. We also had Elvis Blue Hawaii framed record album. And I looked towards those albums on the wall, and I could see smoke hanging in the air. And I knew I had to leave. And I didn't want to. I grabbed the computer tower and I left. I didn't even have shoes on. I didn't have shoes on. I didn't have a coat on. I had nothing. Just socks, pants, shirt. Out I went. We got outside and it was a nightmare. Sarah realized that we have to get the car out from the back of the building before, like, as the fire department is showing up and everything like that. We can't just leave the car back there, because if, the fire is immense or whatever, it's going to be an issue. So she went and she got the car, and we're sitting in the car parked across from our home that was in the process of burning down. And I remember looking up towards one of our windows, because we were on the 3rd floor, just like we're on the 3rd floor now. And one of the windows blew out, like the glass shattered. And I will never, ever in my life forget the sound of Sarah's scream when that happened. It was heart-wrenching. It was horrifying. It was by far the worst thing. And it haunts me. It still does. As I was sitting there watching the firefighters go into the building, I just kept thinking to myself, I should be going back in there. I should be trying to find my cats. I should be trying to find them because I know that they're up there. Anyway, so we're standing outside of the car watching all of this go on, and I've got no shoes on, I've got no jacket, nothing. Because we had to move the car too, because we can't just leave the car sitting next across from the burning building. The firefighters needed to have access. So I'm standing there and I'm watching all this happen, and we had a woven blanket in the car trunk that I put on. So I'm literally standing there on the street corner in a woven blanket, watching everything that I had, just go away. And there's somebody with a camera that was getting ready to take a picture. So I looked at him and he went like this. and he was seriously gonna cuss me out over it. He looked so angry because I had ruined his photograph of somebody suffering with cheerfulness. That was satisfying. We had somebody from the local newspaper was there, and they were asking questions and things like that, and I had started talking, and I said, hey, we have 2 cats inside, and da da da, and she says, well, we they're taking animals to X place, let's walk and talk and we can go there. So they were supposed to be taking them to one of the buildings adjacent, and that's what she said. So I go and I start talking about who I was, what's going on, all this sort of. It was all bullshit. The whole thing was bullshit. It was just to get me to talk and walk and all that. The writer, the journalist in question, proceeded to write an article where she quoted our neighbors that were saying basically the people that live in that building keep all these odd hours, and really they're not surprised. They kind of deserved it. They were up to something. So at the time, and for most of my adult life, I've had displaced sleep cycle disorder, where I would not feel naturally tired until like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I work second shift. I would get up at like noon or 1, and I would stay up till like 5 in the morning a lot, but apparently because of that I was a weirdo, and from this quote that was in the local newspaper, somehow deserving of this fate, because I kept weird hours because I work second shift and am up all night. So, thank you to that journalist that decided to publish our neighbor's quote instead of to, actually talk about our point of view, the people who are actually suffering. That was an awesome job. I'm not at all salty about that. But, is what it is. All I know is anytime someone's like, oh, this person, they did. I'm like, yeah, you know what they did? they did this. So, anyway, that said, I called my family. I called Saz's family, and we told them what was going on. My dad left work. He came and he watched us, just standing helplessly. And our landlord showed up, and he's like, "Oh, guys, I feel so bad about XYZ, this, that, the other." And like, hey, there's nothing we can do at this point, you know. So I tell him, I look at him in completely straight face. I say, well, Sarah and I wanted to minimalize anyway. And, so I joked about it because that's how I deal with a lot of these things. I don't know that he found it funny, but I told him, it's when you're hanging from the end of the rope, all you have is gallows humor. So we that night we stayed with my parents. Stayed with my parents for like a month, actually, which was very generous of them. Sarah's mom had also offered to have us stay with her, but she was in Providence, and it was just easier if we were staying in our city, staying in Woonsocket. So, because I work not far from here, instead of having a longer commute and everything. Anyway, so we were at my parents', and then the donations started. One of the guys from work had like a bag of clothes he showed up with for me. I had one of my friends showed up with like cookies and stuff, and a book I let her borrow years prior. So she gave me that. She gave me a journal as well. Another friend showed up with some baked goods and some clothing and a CD, Mumford and Sons. We had lost everything, and we were already getting it back. We were already being helped. We were supported. My sister took us shopping for clothes. And I will not, that's another thing I won't forget, because it was Christmas time. And there we are, buying an entirely new wardrobe. And I just felt the entire time that Saz and I had a sign on us that said, "Fire people. Displaced by fire." Because everywhere I went, I felt like I was almost outside of myself. The strangeness of the frivolity of Christmas, the joy of the season, when contrasted with the turmoil and trauma I was going through, was something my brain couldn't handle. So I was dissociating. So we got a whole new wardrobe. I know that there are some choices of shopping that Sarah would have made differently. We talked her into some stuff that she didn't want, I'm sure. But she had clothes and I had clothes. And eventually things would be okay. But I remember I think it was the next day. So it was the day after the fire. I went to Wendy's. And I got a hamburger. I got a number 2 with cheese, biggie sized with a Dr. Pepper, which was my like go-to, the double cheeseburger. And I sat in the car, and I got one smell of the hamburger and the fries, and I started crying. I was so comforted by the food. looking back, that was really an indication of how bad my struggle with food really was. The fact that like all these people that were literally pouring out support for me did not move me as much as this bag of fast food. Um, but it did, and it only really registered years later when I started realizing I had a food problem, uh, that I was equating the comfort provided by food as something greater than the comfort provided by other people. So, yeah, it was a huge wake up call. But one of the things that I won't forget anytime soon is the outpouring of support of my community. So, my friends, my family, my coworkers, absolute strangers. We were given enough money to start anew, be able to reestablish ourselves. We got this apartment, and we've been here since. And we've repopulated it with things, and our lives were put back together. But I will never lose the appreciation for having lost everything. And that's what it took to really realize what I had. And I think that goes for a lot of people, is that you don't realize what you actually have until you realize what it's like when you don't. So, anyways, strange ending to a comic book haul video. So I'm probably going to just do this as its own separate thing at this point, because I don't think anyone's going to watch an hour-long comic haul video. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. It feels awkward and strange to say that at the end of all of this outpouring, as I sit here in my robe, in my Krampus t-shirt, waxing on about trauma from a decade ago. But the reminder's always there. So every year at this time, I'll see a memory, or this happens to be the time that we also do inventory at work for the last quarter. And that's one of the few times I've ever called in for work. So I'll always remember when it's inventory time, oh yeah, that time I called in because I lost everything the day before. Alright, well, that is the end of the video for now. Once again, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you've been through anything horrid, if you're going through anything terrible, know that it is temporary. That life, existence, is like the breath. There is a growing. You reach a peak, you stay suspended there for some time, and then there is a shrinking down. And there is a bottom, and you stay there for some time. And it just keeps going like that. It just keeps turning in and out. And just peak, valley, peak, valley. Everything passes eventually. The good things and the bad things. And the most important thing is to appreciate the people you have, the love that you feel, and the moment that you're in. Because the one guarantee we have in life is this moment right now. This is the only thing we have as a guarantee. The next breath, who knows what it will bring. So, with that, I'll sign off with love, luck, and lollipops. We'll see you next time.